Well, everybody's going on about this dead queen and this new king. So maybe we should do a news. Ho! Hi, folks. Here we are, Johnny Vedmore. This is the third edition of NEWSHOUND. And today we're going to do the same as everybody else has been doing, but in a different way, like NEWSHOUND always does. We're going to come up with something a little bit more original by looking at something a little bit less original, something that's already been done within the newspapers of the past and with the archives that can help us make sense of the current situation. The situation as it's seen in the past is often different than the situation it's seen in the now. So let's have a little look. Shall we? Let's dig into some stuff. I think it's a good idea if we dig into some stuff. So let's start off by going back in time. We're in the Belfast Telegraph. Oh my God, we've traveled through time. I need travel through time music for this. If anybody wants to make me a little ditty for travel through time music, you can do. But we've traveled through time here to the headline: festive crowds jam wedding route. So we're back in 1981. I said 1991 maybe, and I'm sorry if I said 1991. We've got another article that I think is from 1991. That's partially where I got that in my head. 1981. Guess what that was? Wedding route, crowds jamming. It's amazing. Being reported in Belfast. Which wedding can be so big that it's reported all around the place? Well, of course, it's the wedding of the future King Charles. And we're not going to look at this front page article, though, which may all be very interesting. No, I'm going to put on me cheap discount reading specs, and I'm going to go to page number 10 of the Belfast Telegraph from Tuesday, July the 28th, 1981. The wedding of a generation, the life and times of a prince and his lady. Let's move around where I'm situated on the board here. Hiya, how's it going? That's me. And we'll go down. So there's a little bit, like a little piece about their marriage and how, like, it'll say up there, it'll say about how, he was only 3 years of age when the media began speculating who his potential bride could be. And this is a little girl who grew up to entrance a future king. But this isn't quite true, is it? Because that's not what happened at all. That's not the way it worked out. And this poor lady got bullied to death, some people believe. Some people believe bullied to being murdered. But we're going to look at this one. A very interesting article entitled, "What Kind of Future Britain Awaits King Charles III?" This is one of 3 articles we're going to look at in this NEWSHOUND that relates to the view of the past of Prince Charles. And I think this is a pretty important one because seeing as Prince Charles is so involved in the World Economic Forum and looking at what the future will hold so that they can I mean, he does a lot about the environment, so it's all about, we approaching a crisis in the future. Worth knowing what type of future they're looking at, what type of futurist futurist king they're expecting, because they are expecting that, as you will understand from this article. So here we go. Belfast Telegraph. NEWSHOUND! You may be sure that the elaborate preparations and the scale of the royal wedding will attract some critics, not all confined to the political left. Something which we've seen a lot recently. They've been saying it's only the left who disagrees with them with having a monarchy, but that's not so. We may expect puritanical denunciations of hysteria, unavailing pleas for something simpler and more in keeping with the spirit of the times. Nevertheless, as public spectacle and demonstration of public support for and identification with the idea of the monarchy, the wedding will mark a new height of popularity for the institution and its style. Now, the style has changed a lot in the years. The style that is of now, that the monarchy, the current prevailing monarchy is much different from those of the past. If you go back to the first Charles I and Charles I, and then Charles II, So the first two Charleses, King Charleses. Well, the first Charles had a very different style, liked to put up tax a lot, didn't believe in Parliament, and eventually that saw a civil war in England that killed a vast amount of the population, the fighting population, caused devastation all across the land, pitted brothers against brothers, and ended with King Charles I having his head chopped off, Oliver Cromwell becoming Lord Protector, and afterwards deciding that it's best probably to let King Charles II back on the throne now. So, and then eventually the country hated Oliver Cromwell so much that they dug up his body and chopped off his head, I believe. He was a brutal, horrible, nasty individual, Oliver Cromwell. The crimes of the massacre of Drogheda are well known. After the English Civil War, they went on a campaign in Ireland to seize a certain amount of land in Ireland, and they basically just killed everybody, man, woman, and child, in where they attacked. So I mean, that time was all terrible. And Charles II went on to go through the time of the plague, the Great Fire of London, and then 10 years after that, he defaulted on a loan with the banks, and that caused a massive financial collapse. So, Charles is in historically have not been the luckiest or the most well-off kings at the end of their reigns. They've usually got a lot of haters, and that style that the Stuarts bought would only last another few monarchs before William Mary got put on the throne, and the Glorious Revolution would happen, which would see a new style of monarchy. Lasted for quite a while, and got a bit crazy when he got literally crazy when you get to George III and stuff. Actually crazy in the head. But Victoria, she was of course a different style again, and by the time it got round to Elizabeth I, she took a little bit of Victoria's style, a little bit Elizabeth II, sorry, she took a little bit of Victoria's style and a little bit of Elizabeth I's style, in being like all things to all men, which we'll probably see again noted down in either of these articles. It will be an opportunity to seize the public imagination, an opportunity firmly showing the abiding sway of the monarchy over the British people. So they have a sway, apparently. It will also be a milestone in the slowly changing history and influence of the throne. And not only because the Prince of Wales will now lead a life more obviously identifiable with that of the vast majority of his future subjects, that identification is all important to the future of Prince Charles, even though he may not be king until the 21st century. In nearly 30 years, the monarchy's position has been made still more secure because the royal family, with Prince Charles very much to the fore, have sought to identify themselves in ways their predecessors rarely did, with many more aspects of life, sports, hobbies, homemaking, education, and youth movements and charities. Yes, they've been a lot more active, and this isn't a coincidence or by accident or just because they're nice people and they want to help the youth movements and they want to help education and they want to help charities. These all give them influence in some way, especially as I learned through my investigations into Klaus Schwab himself, an ally of Prince Charles, a close ally of Prince Charles, King Charles, sorry, the third King Charles, is that they concentrated the CIA funded conduits that set up courses like Kissinger's International Seminar, concentrated on education, youth movements, and charities as a way to infiltrate these organizations and infiltrate people's minds for the culture war, to beat back communism, the threat of communism. Now that threat is the way of life we live. They want to beat back the way of life that we currently live and create this global order. So it's a completely different thing that they're looking to infiltrate these organizations for, and the monarchy have done a good job of that. But if you notice, the Queen may support charities and stuff, but politically she remains unbiased, apparently, even though that she enters now and again into a little bit of this. She's not allowed to comment on things. She's supposed to be above that. Can you see Charles III doing that? I don't think so. So will the style change? And that's the key question from before. Will the style change because of all of these things he likes to do as part of the monarchy? As a matter of policy, um, as well as of desire, the Queen, Prince Philip, and Prince Charles have taken a lead in associating themselves more with the workers and less with the figureheads in all of these endeavors. Now, this is bull. This is bull. All of these organizations, all of these philanthropic efforts have all been them surrounding themselves with other figureheads to go, look what we're doing for these poor people, and to network with other grandees of the world stage, people of power and influence within banking or politics or industry. You know, these people have been all about influencing those. And this article tries to state that they've been associating themselves more with the workers. Since when does that fly? Don't think so. Prince Charles knows, and his princess is likely to learn fast, that if the position of heir is difficult, how much more so is that of the sovereign? He can look forward to being unlike any other person in the world. If he follows the Queen's style, he must keep a certain sense of mystery and at times distance, not qualities particularly evident in the lively, outgoing prince. And that's what I'm saying. He doesn't like to sit on the back. He likes to be right at the front, and he thinks everybody else should know better than to question him. You know, you see this in his actions when he's signing documents or just doing official things. You can see his petulance for time wasters and for these normal folk. He wants things done. He wants them done now, and he should do them then. You know, he's a very proactive king. That means that his habits and wishes and the weight of many real and some imaginary considerations of dignity are likely to inhibit him from adopting the easier lifestyle of the bicycle monarchies of Scandinavia. All this apart from that nowadays vital question of image he and Diana will create and project. Now, I'm just going to stop just where they talk about him and Diana and what image he was going to create, because what image ended up being projected was not good for Charles at all. It showed him to be a user and abuser, really. From adopting the easier lifestyle of the bicycle monarchies. Now, from a lot of people who don't know, in America, a lot of the Scandinavian monarchies are like kings and queens, go around on bicycles and do PR shots of how normal they are, so they can keep their money, so they can keep as much power as they possibly can, because their people won't allow it anymore. The British people will bend over to the monarchy over and over again, loads of them, because they're still run by the southeast of England, which is run by a load of, you could say, patriots, or you could say fascist monarchists, something along those lines. But if you're supporting the monarchy as ruling the country, then you're enforcing that belief on everybody else, whether they agree with it or not. So that sounds like a despot. What's a despot? A king, maybe. A good example, or queen. King Charles. He has long since come to terms with a kind of instant halo conferred by TV, which is appropriate, for he is the first heir to have been brought up in the television age. It's very interesting that you say that, the instant halo. It's necessary to realize, in setting any scene for Charles's future, the importance the royal family attached to the mystique of the monarchy. One insider says they believe in this mystique, and mystique is the one thing they feel they've got over every other royal family around. And this is true. Queen Elizabeth has been able to be all things to all men. She's been able to look like the queen who cares about everybody in just every single way. And she's this and she's that, and she's everything to every person. But it's all about creating like a mystique, an unknown quantity. Because if we know what they're really like, we don't want them to rule over us because we realize they're not only no different, but they probably hold abhorrent views that we can't attach with at all. And they like to attach that mystique so that we don't attach that other stuff to them, because their real face isn't so mysterious. It's a face we've seen over and over again, and we know from all of the negative stories about people who are royals. The prince, known to be a man of liberal views in a conservative setting, very interesting way to term it, has advantage over earlier royals in having had much wider and deeper education. Oh, that's lucky he'll be an educated one. He is much more aware of how other people live and of the pressures of their everyday lives. I don't think that's true. I think if it is, he understands that he's above them and he's better than them. That's what it feels like to me. So down with the gang. Uh, he is certainly one to trust his instincts over those of some of the courtiers and pussyfooting advisors. That's a very interesting sentence, but still, he is certainly one to trust his instincts over the. He knows best. He's got massive amount of hubris. He's always been like that. He thinks he knows best. He's been waiting for this for ages, and he knows better than everybody. You know, this is the thing about Prince Charles and now King Charles III that is very different about his mother. His mother was just like, oh, let's just keep that mystique going by just not saying anything and going out and King Charles III is going to say stuff out loud all of the time. It's going to pee you off, especially when they're supposed to be keeping this mystique, because it stops people from revolting, basically. He doesn't realize as soon as he shows his face, people are going to start hating him. And he doesn't think that because he's so up his own arse. In his middle years, he will face a Britain likely to be marked by still greater political change. True, massive greater political change that I mean, this is in 1981. So he would help with a lot of that change, especially the modern change. He would help support the people into that change, but a lot of his allies were the ones creating this change, political change, the change of the fall of the Berlin Wall and the sudden creation of the young global leaders or global leaders for tomorrow by the World Economic Forum to seed leaders into power and create that political change themselves. Racial difficulties, yes, there's racial difficulties. There's still going to be, there was in the past, and there is now. Nowadays, racial racial divides are used to distract people from the stuff they want to do, so they play with them, and it's disgusting. It's racism. You play on racism in all different types of way, make racial difficulties, and then blame it on people who you define as racist, who are always going to be your enemies, and the whole time all of these guys are arguing amongst themselves while you're raping them both. So social upheaval, yes, of course we see social upheaval because these guys are in charge. The Pareto distribution, you've got all of the wealth going to the top and it's all going into one area. Of course it's going to be like that. That's very much going to be like that. Artistic creativity, I think they put that in just to because King Charles has always been involved in that sort of stuff, like the water rats. You go and look at water rats, you'll understand what I mean. The organization, huge industrial and technological transformations. I mean, you don't get bigger than the Great Reset and everything that's going on now, do you? And still greater dominance of the media. Yes, yes, yes. All of those things are the things that we're entering into in the future. And I'm just going to turn on this light. Oy, oy, oy. Oy. Yes, all of those things are things we're going to enter into the future. But uh, the a lot of them are created by people like Charles III and his allies. So and the media itself, well, the media is completely owned, and they knew this. They knew it. I mean, the idea of all wealth going to one area, that's the same with like, I suppose you could call it technological wealth. The output of certain technologies all goes to one area. The benefits of it all go to one area once everything else has been seized by those same people. So all processes are certain to accelerate in the era of Charles III. It's true. Let's read that again out quickly instead of with breaks. Greater political change. The time that Britain will be marked by greater political change, racial difficulties, social upheaval, artistic creativity, huge industrial and technological transformations, and still greater dominance of the media. Every single one of those are right, and every single one of them are something Charles III is being linked with, being part of creating, or is encouraging in some way in all of his actions. He's right in the center of a lot of this. It will call for sensitivity and understanding from him, and one can say this with less confidence. Oh, sorry. From those immediately around him. Wow, I think maybe they're talking about Andrew there, and they're doing a bit of this, or maybe they're talking about his wife and thinking, oh, she's a bit ditzy. Diana. The press had such a low regard for Diana because Diana was also like an 18-year-old, didn't know what the fuck was going on, and was just thrown into this world of sharks who were all much better educated than her, and in relationship, in like respectively, she was basically a an a child in her mind compared to a lot of these guys. These guys were really sinister when she was thrown in amongst the lion's den, and that had a massive effect on her. The whole world seeing how that was, but the media blamed her the entire time and had kept a very low, held her in low esteem. Granted that the wedding will demonstrate the high point of acclaim, can he and the royal entourage rely always on the continuance of public faith and support? In a public opinion poll on attitudes to the throne taken in 1969, sure that wasn't unbiased. Sure that wasn't biased at all. The year of Charles' investiture as Prince of Wales, 84% thought the Queen was indeed needed, and 16 thought not. The older the age group, the greater the loyalty. No, sheesh, Sherlock. Would a similar poll today, in the age of further social strains and so much more questioning of the establishment, show results as generally favorable to the monarchy? It's difficult to say. No, it's not difficult to say. It's a definite fact. Yes, it will show that people don't like the monarchy as much. It's difficult to say, but it may be less likely if so. Charles will grow to kingship, having to come to terms with a more critical society, perhaps even a less governable one. Well, they're not aiming for that, are they? They're aiming to govern all of society under one banner, a one world regime, one world government, global world order, led by Schwab and enacted by people like King Charles the Third, who suggests doing military style campaigns for economic reforms attached with climate change. The chances are that discreetly but increasingly he may move with that society while maintaining as much of the mystique of the monarchy as he sees fit. Maintaining as much mystique. This is what they all. I mean, Charles is not a mystery for a lot of people. He's not a very nice person. A lot of people can see that his mystery is his mystique is going to die pretty quickly. I don't think he'll have any way to control that. In that way, he may strengthen the monarchy further. In particular, he is likely, in and through his married life, to extend and deepen the direct social and cultural influences for good of the monarchy in a newer and probably more positive ways that may recall the endeavors of the Prince Consort. He will certainly want to lessen what John Osborne calls the royal round of gracious boredom. Well, he didn't do that, did he? And his wife didn't. His marriage and married life didn't extend and deepen the direct social and cultural influence for the good of the monarchy at all. It actually left him hated by many people. And that is a very interesting article, especially some parts of what people thought was the Britain that would await King Charles in the future back in 1981. It's always interesting to look at something like that in the Belfast Telegraph. And so if we go on to the next thing that I want to look at, this is a bit more lightweight. As you know, with NEWSHOUND, we start off with something that's the main matter of fact. This is going to be a bit lighter. This was 10 years later in 1991. This is the one that I was thinking of, 27th of December. So it's still Christmas. Everyone's having fun at Christmas. And it's the news. That's what the newspaper's called. I've never heard of this one, but it came out in Chatham, Rochester, and Gillingham, is where it was. It's established in 1859. Associated Kent newspapers. Okay, right. So Associated Kent newspapers, I would suppose, were probably bought out by Trinity Mirror at some point later on. And would have changed to some other name. It'd be interesting to find out. I always find it interesting to discover these guys. So, let's make that big. All right, let's go. No surprise from Gorby. So we're leaping into 1992. This is written in 1991. This is much more fun. Let's enjoy ourselves. Be open-minded. It was no surprise that Mikhail Gorbachev and Boris Yeltsin emerged supreme from Moscow power struggle, just as it was no surprise when Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, the Prince of Wales becomes King Charles III, or when Mrs. Thatcher is re-elected Tory leader in the middle of the decade. No surprise, that is, to those who believe in the works of 16th century prophet Nostradamus. Well, some of that was wrong, wasn't it? She wasn't re-elected. According to the authors of a new book, the great man forecast a stormy run into the end of the century, with shocks around almost every corner. Yes, Nostradamus liked that. Although the prophecies of Nostradamus cover thousands of years, V.J. Hewitt and Peter Lorre says the main thrust has always been the 1990s and the conflict and upheaval the era will bring. It's convenient. They're writing in the 1990s, and all of the predictions are about the 1990s. But it is quite true that when you do, you can easily slot them into things that happen, because I think a lot happened around that time. That's really an industrial time of war as well, really just post-industrial war. The predictions are contained in strange little verses known as quatrains. There have been many attempts to interpret them over the years, but Hewitt and Lorre claim to have been using a decoding process which offers the solution to one of the most exciting riddles that history has ever offered. Sorry. Well, does it? Because I've read nearly all of the quatrains that are available, the original quatrains that were created, the original writings of Nostradamus. I'm not sure if the originals were in quatrain form or quatrainic form, I don't know what you'd say, were set up within quatrains, but he did destroy a lot of his early work and then rewrite it again into quatrains, which are like little pieces, like almost like haiku sort of like format, sort of like miniature quotes about something that give you a little peek into stuff rather than long explanations, all in riddles. So thus Gorbachev is said to be still at the Soviet helm in 1994 when he allows Eastern European countries to move towards a union with the EC. But Yeltsin might have replaced him by 1997 when the Russian spacecraft will crash on America. The prediction refers to the leader Yeltsin suggesting that if he is not head of the USSR, then Russia is running its own independent space program. Oh, wow, that's amazing. The authors find many references to war in Europe throughout the prophecies for the 1990s. Other predictions include royals. Prince Charles will become king. in the 90s, is it? Nostradamus doesn't say what happens to the Queen. Diana plays her part in reviving the fleeting monarchy, while Charles, the steadfast man, leads the environmental battle to save the world. Right. Now, that's hit. You can call that hit and miss. Definitively hit and miss. Prince Charles will become king. Well, they talk about other predictions include, but they say a lot of throughout the prophecies in the 1990s, but they don't say the other predictions are all throughout the 1990s. So maybe it's thing. But of course, Prince Charles will become king, where he was next in line to the throne. He most likely become king. Nostradamus doesn't say what happens to the Queen. Well, you'd assume that she's dead. Diana plays her part in reviving the fleeting monarchy, while Charles, the steadfast man, leads the environmental battle to save the world. And that's what he's put himself. So now, here's a question, mate. We all know that Diana didn't play her part in reviving the fleeting monarchy, unless her part was to be crashed into a brick pillar and die, so that people can be like mourning her, and then they can reform their attachment to the monarchy in a different way through another psychological made up psychological ritual that is enacted on us by intelligence agencies. Maybe that's the revival. That's what it means about the fleeting monarchy, reviving the fleeting monarchy. But I don't doubt it. But this is interesting. While Charles, the steadfast man, leads the environmental battle to save the world. Now, is Charles started? Did he start leading the environmental battle? Did they say that because he's already an environmentalist at this point, or did they say that and he's gone, oh, Nostradamus says that, predicts that I should do this, so maybe I should do this so it can look like it's prediction, and then that gives me some sort of like backing. Who knows? But I thought that was very interesting. Well, what else does it say in here? We don't have to stick with Charles. We can go off now. This is NEWSHOUND, just the way it goes. So, Britain, the European process will accelerate with full monetary and economic union by May 1996. Oh, is that they didn't get that right. All nations, including the UK, will lose their sovereignty in the formation of the Great European Alliance. That kind of did happen, and we don't really know, because in a sense, we could say the World Economic Forum could be the Great European Alliance, and we've lost our sovereignty to their Young Global Leader project. So we could say that, possibly in the last-ditch bid to prevent Britain's inclusion to this super Europe, the Tories elect Mrs. Thatcher leader once more. Did not happen. This will happen in 95-96, but it's not clear whether she will be prime minister again. The Conservatives might no longer be in power. Yeah, well, it's too late for that. All of that's dead. Europe. Paris becomes a lawless city by night, her streets terrorized by gangs of drunken youth. There could be nighttime curfew. That kind of happened in some parts during the 90s. It was pretty rough. If you saw any representations of Parisian cultures in the banlieues and the suburbs during that period, you might remember La Haine, which is a French movie with Vincent Cassel, one of Vincent Cassel's first big movies, I think. Independent, really, really good movie. Watch it. Spelled La and Haine, Haine. Well worth a watch. But that was the representation of it: lawless, nighttime curfews, terrorized by gangs. You know, that was what Paris liked to dress itself up. But it was already like that by then, due to the segregation that you see in French society. Anyway, I lived in France. I saw it. I lived on a white road and had the people from other countries, from all around other countries, French people who are from other descendancies, descended from other countries, all on either side of this road. I've seen it. USA, America is devastated by natural disasters. That's always happens, but not devastated. The West Coast is rocked by the biggest earthquake in US history in May 1993. San Diego disappears beneath the sea. Giant waves hit Mexico. Los Angeles is undermined. Hollywood studios collapse, and there's mass evacuation of California. That's all in 1993. Amazing. I don't know how they made things like Shawshank Redemption afterwards, or Pulp Fiction, but they did it. Oh no, I suppose Pulp Fiction was Pulp Fiction 1994. I reckon it's 1994. In the following 3 years, the country is crackling with severe hot weather, drought, and forest fires. People die, food is scarce. Oh my God, it's this wasteland. And this is what they want to put in your head. These sort of articles are there. You're definitely going to get people reading it. It's just after Christmas, 27th of December. Everybody's sitting around. They got nothing better to do. They've all played with their presents for long enough. They're reading their stuff and they're getting told that there's going to be severe hot weather, drought, forest fires, people die, food is scarce. King Charles comes and saves the day. George Bush is re-elected president. Well, you could have. I mean, if they had to put in the re, then they would have got a real key one there. But no, George doesn't have. George Bush is re-elected president before all this happens, but without Dan Quayle as his running mate. A disaster averted? Question mark. Middle East, the end of the modern nation of Israel, defeated by our Arab neighbors in a catastrophic 3-year war, 1995 to 1998. Holy hell. A resurgent Saddam Hussein joins forces with Syria and Egypt when Israel attacks Palestinian nations. Israel is overrun by Arab armies. Again, like fear, fear, fear. And at the same time, they were aiming to do the opposite, and they were doing the opposite, where they were enacting the opposite. So this is how disgusting it is. This is the fantasy that people live in. Turkey and Greece go to war over Cyprus beginning in 1994. Everything's happening in the 90s. It didn't happen in the 90s, eh? Africa, Nelson Mandela, a dying man, becomes South African president in July 1994. The AIDS epidemic swarms across the Mediterranean into Europe. Oh my God, no. Near the end of the century, don't tell me everybody's going to be dead. Oh God, don't do that. Ah, no. Oh, sorry about that, everybody. Near the end of the century, millions of starving refugees die in Sudan. Oh, well, actually, it was just after the century, I think the refugees died in Sudan. Close. Medicine, new methods of fighting cancer with sound waves prove increasingly successful, with patients cured by 1998. The aging process is reversed. Holy hell, everything happens. This is like amazing, amazing. This is written in 1991, and like everything's going to happen in the next. This is what people, this is the mindset people get into. In reality, I know this sounds like tongue-in-cheek, but people read this and they believe, they like go away saying, oh no, because I've heard that in 1994 this is going to happen, in 1995. They don't necessarily remember what they were reading at the time when they hear that information, but information sticks in your head. It does to me. Sometimes I say things and I realize I got something because of the way something was worded, and it's not true at all. I have to double check and triple check everything I say all of the time. Science, a giant hole is discovered in the ozone layer over Antarctica. A second is found over the Indian Ocean. Wait a minute. Who's that in the distance? It's King Charles III with a cape on. He's coming. Oh no, that's a tampon. Anyway, a second is found over the Indian Ocean. Humans visit Mars in the year 2000. Wow, Elon Musk must be gutted. He's barely out of PayPal, isn't he? But 2 years earlier, aliens are captured on film on Earth for the first time. Scientists explain the secret of black holes in space. Shit, man. The 90s was heavy, wasn't it? Religion. The end of the decade sees the rise of major new world religion. The first since Islam 1,500 years ago. Now, this is true. This could still happen, that's for sure. Maybe not in the 90s. Women priests will be admitted in the Church of England by 1995, and the Catholic priesthood is corrupted by AIDS. What? Is that the Catholic priesthood is corrupted by AIDS? What, you mean they get AIDS, or they... I just don't understand what that means. The authors say the overall message is for a happier, a more peaceful 21st century. In the short term, there is greater threat to the world from man-made corruption and natural disasters than from any war between nations. Ultimately, the predicted disasters could bring mankind together enough to make them make him forget his perpetual differences, they say. We've heard these psyops before. If we believe the prophet, we can look forward to a delightful future. So here we go. Prophecies at a glance. 1992, George Bush was re-elected US president. So Clinton didn't get. Actually, wait a minute. 1992, George Bush crime family the Bush crime family managed to elect in one of their lieutenants, Bill Clinton, as US president. So, I can't remember if there was any earthquakes in 1993, but the west coast of America didn't fall into the sea. So 1994, Nelson Mandela becomes South African president. Did that happen? I thought he became president a little bit earlier, but still, I mean, it was obvious. The trajectory was obvious. Mrs. Thatcher re-elected as Tory leader in 1995. Tell that to John Major, would you? Full European Economic and Monetary Union. Oh my God, they had no idea, did they? They had no idea how divisive European unification with Britain would be. Led to Brexit, of course, and all of this. Lead is still going. 1997, spacecraft crashes on America, just on the map, like just crashes found. And 1998, aliens televised. Amazing. Well, that could be so. That could be at the start of George W. Bush's campaign. 1999, man develops power to predict the future. Oh my God, this is amazing. We're all gonna be fine now. And 2000, mission to Mars is lands on Mars, is successful, and we go, oh look, all of this red rock, let's all go skipping into the sunlight, rainbow, unicorn beams together. I love you, Mum. I love you, Dad. I love you, Mary Sue. Anyway, so Nostradamus, The End of Millennium by VJ Hewitt and Peter Lorre is published by Bloomsbury for £14.99. I tell you what, that's a lot of money to pay for a book now. Imagine paying that for this piece of crap back in 1991. Holy hell in a handbag. Well, I tell you, one person who possibly did was Charles, who was very happy to discover that he the steadfast man, as they call him, would lead the environmental battle to save the world. Well, out of all the predictions, maybe that will be true, because it kind of is happening. He was the first person to put forward the Sustainable Development Goals, or whatever it was called, at the World Economic Forum. I mean, it's always funny. You see, the thing is, nearly every single one of these so-called prophecies has not come to pass, apart from this one, which seems to be true, and it's about King Charles III, which is very interesting. I find very interesting. And one more note, and this is just to go out on something which I think you'll see a lot this term, go a lot in the future, and not surprisingly, this will come from the Liverpool Echo, Tuesday, April the 16th, 1991, also in 1991. So we've gone 1981 and 1991. This is the third article. And there's this article about 65 years. It's part 2 of 65 long, glorious years, long to reign over us all. It's all about the Queen. And look, there's her and Prince Charles left. Should she step down and let Prince Charles take over? Now, that's the question that's asked down here. I love the people of Liverpool anyway, for always daring to ask these questions. So 65th birthday, and they put a little section at the bottom saying, should she abdicate? Do you agree with Diana Paulson that the Queen should reign till she drops, or do you feel that at 65 it is time she stood aside to make way for King Charles III? Now, think about that carefully, and please put your views to Royal Letters, Liverpool Echo, PO Box 48, Old Hall Street, Liverpool, L69 3EB. Put a time traveling stamp on it, and God bless you all. So there you go. There's some looking at King Charles III, looking at the future in both different ways. Number one, in a way that seems sensible, which seemed to be quite true, to be perfectly honest, looking at him seeing a future of political change, greater political change, racial difficulties, social upheaval, artistic creativity, huge industrial and technological transformations, and still greater dominance of the media. Those are very true. That's exactly what we're expecting to see. And one of the things also that's really, really interesting is that the one in the article that was about was a load of bollocks, still manages to come up with a nice little piece about how the steadfast man, King Charles, leads the environmental battle to save the world. To save the world. Super Charles, Super King. There's Super King Charles. Actually, Super King used to be a type of cigarette over here. I probably still are. So there you go. Some stuff. Why not? We went through it and now we know it. And now we'll probably forget it very quickly afterwards. But it's true that Charles in the past was looked upon as doing a job in the future by people who kind of knew what the future would look like. And I'm not talking about Nostradamus now, but the future, the immediate future, if you really concentrate on gaming it out and use different techniques like game theory, some people nowadays are using AI and stuff to do this sort of stuff. If you do all you can to try and work out what the future is going to be, you can really understand what the problems in the future will be. In this case, a lot of those were very much right. And two very important things is like the advances in technology was something that Charles could see coming very well and wanted to be part of, and also the environmental battle. Now, lots of people, probably including me, don't believe in all of the climate agenda is all it seems to be. It's a very devious attempt to take a lot of power without us being able to fight against it. It's battling something very ethereal and hard to grasp, hard to hold on to, and it's making up rules that basically say we're in an emergency, so we got to use emergency powers. And what the emergency powers means is all of the stake we have as voters and as citizens in society is going to be sold off to the private sector so they can help save us from this private climate emergency, even though they're the ones who have created the supposed climate emergency, even in their own narrative, their own storyline. So it's really hard for us to trust them anyway, because they're completely untrustworthy. Listen, if you like that, keep a lookout for more NewsHound coming up. I'm also going to do another couple of news series about things, and of course my auditing work goes up on my articles. Please support independent media. You can find me on johnnyvedmore.com, fungymonkey.com. You can also find me on Unlimited Hangout and hopefully on UK Column News soon. So that's been NewsHound, and down with the king, the fascist regime. There you go.
Shaping a great reset for the post-corona era.